First of all, thank you all for being here. My name is Seth Bloomberg. I work here at Messari on one of our research teams, and I cover consumer crypto. Today is Friday. It's our last day at Mainnet. So again, thank you all for being here. This presentation is going to focus on the consumer piece of crypto, and I'll kind of dig into a little bit of context on how we view it, and then sort of a where we're at, and then a look forward. And if you stick around, we have some other great consumer panels that are going to dig into the application side of things, the infrastructure side of things, and also the investment pieces of it. So I wanted to first start out with this graphic because I really like it. And this is a good model, I think, for thinking about crypto and consumer applications as well within crypto. So this was put together by the team at USV a few years ago. And what it tries to talk through is kind of the cycle between building applications and building infrastructure. So kind of contrary to popular understanding, it's actually applications that tend to drive forward the infrastructure that needs to get built out. So this definitely applies to the crypto domain. And if you kind of look, there's been many examples of this. So one in particular is NFTs. And they've actually gone through this cycle twice now. So back in 2017, you had CryptoKitties, which was a game that was on chain, and they kind of had like the first, one of the first use cases of NFTs back before NFTs were really a thing. And that application drove forward the infrastructure of the ERC 721 token standard, which if you use Ethereum NFTs, you're probably interacting with that token standard now. The second cycle was back in 2021, when the PFPs of NFTs came around, and those were actually like the applications or the infrastructure or the experiences at that time. So minting these things, joining communities, just being a part of the mania, that was the experience, and that actually pushed forward a couple different things. One was NFT marketplaces, so that was existing infrastructure that kind of got a nice product to sit on top of it, and then the second was new pieces of infrastructure like NFT financialization, or like Blur and their NFT lending marketplace. So there's tons of other examples, but now I think if you kind of like step back and say, okay, where are we at in the cycle between these two? If you take a snapshot, we are still a little bit heavy on the infrastructure side of things, but if you start to measure the momentum and where things are swinging, you'll kind of feel that we're definitely swinging back to the application building side. This past summer, we've had tons of applications start to come online and gain traction, and that's been on like L2s, but it's also been on other chains like Solana. So I definitely expect to see that continue throughout the rest of this year and into next year as well. So the next thing I wanted to do was kind of like take a look at a particular app that's grown in usage lately. It's been a bit polarizing, which probably means it's worth looking at to some degree. So I won't get into the details of FriendTech or kind of like how it works and philosophy behind it, if you will. But what I wanted to go through a little bit was the tech stack that it's using, or the infrastructure stack that it's using, and how I think other apps are likely going to leverage this moving forward. So if you don't know FriendTech, just super quick, it's basically an app you use. You log into it with your Twitter account. People can buy the tokens or the shares of folks, and that gives you access to like a token gated chat. There's other stuff to it, but like I said, I just wanted to focus on the infrastructure side of it. So the first thing there is this progressive web app, or PWA, and that's been around for quite a while. But what it does, it allows you to take an app that usually lives in a browser and download it onto your phone, so that it kind of feels like a native app you would get from an app store. And that's important, obviously, for a consumer app. Being on that home screen for any consumer app is crucial to get traction and retain users. And then the second piece there, which is a little bit more subtle, but something that I think is very important, is that allows you to leverage mobile notifications. So notifications largely have been missing from crypto apps looking back. So having a notification kind of allows you to more easily retain users, hook users back into the product. It's very easy to click that notification when it pops up and hop back into the product. So PWAs, definitely other teams are using this stuff, and I expect that to continue. The second there is the embedded wallets that they use, and they use a service called Privy, but embedded wallets are kind of a whole different way of using a wallet compared to the traditional way that apps have done this. So whenever you sign into Frentech, you sign in first with like a social account, like your Gmail account, which obviously is great for like a smooth UX when you onboard. So they've done well there. But then behind the scenes, when you do that, they actually create a wallet for you in the background, which is like an EOA wallet. But what that does is, if you compare it to the traditional way of like using a Uniswap, for example, if you want to sign a transaction in Uniswap, you click a button and it takes you out to like a MetaMask. And Uniswap doesn't own that MetaMask application, right? So if something goes wrong or if something's misconfigured, it reflects poorly back on Uniswap, but they don't control that layer. So you definitely want to avoid that. So that's what this kind of embedded wallet infrastructure does for Frentech, is it allows them to keep all the user flows within the app, which is great from their perspective. So if you take those two things together, it kind of points toward this opinionated UX that app developers want, especially for consumer apps. You typically have a very distinct vision that you want users to go through as they onboard and have all the various user journeys throughout the app, and that's what you get with this stack right here. So I definitely think Frentech has used this well, although there is still trade-offs on the security and the UX side that they have to go through. But I definitely expect to see other teams use this, and we've already seen this a little bit this past summer, leveraging this same stack. And so the last thing I wanted to do was just take like a broader view of sort of where we're at, what some of these main sectors are that have been built out, and just take a look at these. So this is sort of the sectors that are out there. There's always stuff on the edges, but if you look at what's here, it is still a little bit infrastructure heavy, and I think, like I said earlier, that's sort of where we're at. If I put this together next year, I expect that ratio of apps to infrastructure to flip a bit, but this is where we are. So I just wanted to point out maybe two of these that I think are interesting, and then one app sector that's kind of putting some of these pieces together. So the top one there is the wallets and the key management sector. So I've talked through the wallet as a service piece of that, which is like a Privy that Frentech uses. And then the other side, there's the account abstraction side of things. These have been somewhat a little bit, separate lines of development throughout the past year or so. They're starting to converge, which I think is great, and it's interesting. So for the account abstraction side of things, there's been a ton of coverage of this. There's a lot of things you could get into, but one thing that it enables is for an app developer to pay the gas fees for a user that's transacting on their app. So again, that makes for nice smooth onboarding, nice smooth UX. So definitely like that. The second thing there on the kind of bottom left side, right below that, is the payments and the on and off ramps. So in particular, the on and off ramps, there's been a ton of good work by various teams like MoonPay, for example, for on ramps. But even on the off ramp side, things like Beam, which is a little bit newer, and even like traditional firms like PayPal are getting into this. And it is very important, that off ramp side, to kind of make whatever you're earning feel a little bit more real, right? If you have to pay rent, buy groceries, right? Getting that off ramp is actually very important. And then the last thing I wanted to point out was the on-chain media side of things. So that's the bottom right there. This is actually a sector that's full of apps, which is really exciting. I just wanted to point out maybe a couple. So Mirror and Sound. So Mirror is kind of like an on-chain Substack, and Sound is more directed for musical artists. They can upload their music, and their fans can mint that as an NFT. So for something like Sound, if you think about how they can use some of this infrastructure, an artist might want to pay the gas fees for one of their fans if they want to mint their song as an NFT. So that's kind of using that account abstraction layer, which makes a ton of sense. And then, same thing for an artist, right? If they want to offload some of that ETH that they've earned from some of these mints, using like one of these off-ramp providers like a Beam or a Utopia makes a ton of sense as well. So Like I said, tons of exciting stuff happening here. Yeah, and we have some great panels coming up that are going to dig into this a little bit more. So I'll leave it there. Yeah, thank you.